A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. The story of the movie. Chapter 1, The Haunting Resumes. In the quiet, leafy neighborhood of Elm Street, all seemed tranquil on the surface. The Elm Street teenagers, once besieged by the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger, had been through hell and back. They believed they had, against all odds, vanquished their tormentor in the previous harrowing ordeal. With weary smiles and newfound hope, they tried to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. But the darkness that had settled over Elm Street was not so easily dispelled. It lingered in the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike back. And it was in the midst of this seemingly serene atmosphere that our new protagonist, Alice Johnson, was introduced to the story. Alice was an introverted high school student, her demeanor marked by quiet, inner contemplation. She walked the halls of Springwood High, her face hidden beneath a cascade of auburn hair. A wardrobe of oversized sweaters and faded jeans became her armor, shielding her from the prying eyes of her peers. Her isolation was not by choice, but by design, for Alice bore a heavy burden, the weight of loss. Nightmares had become a persistent, cruel companion for Alice, echoing the torment of her dreamscape. In the chilling realms of the night, she saw the faces of her friends, those who had once shared laughter and secrets, now consumed by the grotesque grasp of Freddy Krueger. Each night, their anguished cries and terrified pleas reverberated through her mind, a haunting reminder of the horrors that had unfolded on Elm Street. It was not long before Alice became plagued by a chilling realization. These nightmares were more than mere dreams. They were a grim reminder that the malevolent force they had thought vanquished still whispered its wicked promises to those unfortunate enough to sleep on Elm Street. In a desperate attempt to stave off her torment, Alice began to document her dreams, sketching eerie depictions of her nightmarish visions. Her solitude, however, was not complete. She still had one confidant, one person who had also survived the horrors of Freddy Krueger. Her best friend, Kristen, shared Alice's torment, and they clung to each other as the only survivors of that terrible ordeal. Kristen, though, was not content with merely surviving. She was determined to uncover a way to destroy the nightmare that haunted them. One evening, in the dimly lit confines of Kristen's bedroom, they discussed their shared fears. "We can't let him come back, Alice," Kristen whispered, her eyes filled with dread. "We can't let him take anyone else." The memories of Freddy's clawed glove, his burnt visage, and the nightmarish realm he ruled sent shivers down Alice's spine. She nodded in agreement, for the evil they faced was not a foe to be underestimated. As night descended upon Elm Street, Alice lay in her bed, tormented by the same horrifying dreams. It was as though the veil between the waking world and the nightmarish dimension that Freddy inhabited had been torn asunder, and the haunting resumes. In her fitful slumber, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new nightmare, one that she couldn't escape. The haunting of Elm Street was far from over. Freddy Krueger, the nightmare stalker, was poised to make his malevolent return, and Alice Johnson, with her quiet strength and harrowing dreams, would be the linchpin in this ghastly tale that was about to unfold. Chapter 2, Alice's Unique Power. As the nights grew darker and the nightmares more relentless, Alice Johnson found herself caught in a web of inexplicable phenomena. The eerie sketches she had created from her dreams began to take on an eerie reality of their own. They whispered to her of uncharted depths in her subconscious and the mysterious nature of her connection to her friends who had perished at the hands of Freddy Krueger. One restless night, she saw her latest sketch come to life as a cacophony of laughter filled her room. Gazing at the drawing, she watched in awe as her friend, Sheila, who had been one of Freddy's victims, emerged from the paper, her laughter mingling with the quiet hum of the midnight air. It was then that Alice began to realize the extraordinary power she held, one that set her apart from the rest of the Elm Street survivors. Intrigued and terrified in equal measure, Alice experimented with her newfound gift. She could feel the essence of her friends still lingering within her, as if their very souls had taken up residence within her consciousness. It was not long before she understood the true nature of her abilities. She could absorb their traits, strengths, and even weaknesses. The realization that she could absorb these powers left her both exhilarated and burdened. This was not a gift she had sought, and yet it had chosen her. She began to delve deeper into her dreams, intentionally conjuring her friends' images and absorbing their unique attributes. It was a practice fraught with uncertainty, as the dreamscape was a slippery realm where reality bled into illusion, and danger was ever present. Her best friend, Kristen, had long suspected that their connection to the evil of Elm Street was far from over. Kristen, with her own unique ability to bring others into her dreams, was the first to understand the importance of Alice's power. "You're the key to all of this, Alice," she said, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and dread. "We can't let Freddy come back. Your power might be our only defense." Alice's dreams became a training ground of sorts, where she honed her newfound abilities. It was as though she could access a library of her friends' lives and experiences, a virtual arsenal to be wielded against the nightmare that threatened to resurface. She could draw upon Debbie's strength, Dan's resourcefulness, and even Kristen's ability to pull others into the dream world. This was her unique advantage, but it was also a haunting reminder of the lives she carried within her. Kristen, ever vigilant and determined, warned Alice of the possibility of Freddy's return. "He's not gone, Alice. He's just been biding his time," Kristen said one evening, her eyes fixed on the ominous silhouette of the Elm Street house in the distance. "We need to be ready. We can't let him take any more lives." The knowledge that Freddy Krueger, the nightmare demon, could claw his way back into their lives loomed like a shadow over them. But with her newfound power, Alice stood as a beacon of hope. She knew that her journey was far from over, and that she would need every ounce of strength and determination to face the evil that lingered in the darkest corners of Elm Street. As Alice delved deeper into her dreams, exploring the boundaries of her unique power, she began to realize that the haunting had not just resumed, it had taken on an entirely new and chilling dimension. The malevolent force of Freddy Krueger was on the cusp of resurgence, and the only thing standing in his way was the introverted high school student who held the power to absorb the essence of her fallen friends. Chapter 3: Freddy's Resurgence. The passage of time had done little to diminish the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger. He was a patient predator, a demon forged from the darkest corners of the human psyche, and he had bided his time, waiting for the moment to reawaken and continue his reign of terror. As Alice continued to hone her unique ability, Freddy stirred in the shadowy abyss of the dream world. His spectral form slumbered, awaiting the whisper of fear in the sin of despair that would call him back to life. He knew that his victims were still out there, and he yearned to return to Elm Street, where he could once again haunt the dreams of unsuspecting teenagers. The night air grew heavy with dread as the nightmare stalker began to claw his way back from the depths of the abyss. His return was marked by a series of strange occurrences in the waking world. Objects moved of their own accord, strange noises echoed in the night, and the Elm Street house stood as a looming sentinel, as if harboring the darkest secrets of the universe. Alice, for all her burgeoning abilities, could feel the shift in the dream world. The dreams that once seemed like a playground for experimentation had now transformed into ominous battlegrounds. It was as though the very fabric of the dream world had grown taut, as if some malevolent force sought to tear it asunder. One fateful night, the haunting resumed with a vengeance. Kristen, who had been a beacon of strength for Alice, was the first to fall victim to Freddy's resurgent terror. In her dreams, she found herself alone in the Elm Street house, a place she had thought they'd left behind forever. The walls of the house seemed to close in on her, and the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Kristen's desperate cries for help echoed through the dream world, and her psychic connection to Alice, which had once been a source of strength, now became a chilling conduit of terror. Alice was pulled into Kristen's nightmare, a nightmarish landscape of twisted corridors and shadowy corners. The malevolent figure of Freddy Krueger materialized before them, his scarred visage bathed in an eerie glow. His glove, adorned with razor-sharp blades, made a chilling return, gleaming with sadistic intent. It was as though he had never been defeated, as though the Elm Street teenagers had merely thwarted his plans for a time. "Welcome back, Kristen," Freddy purred, his voice dripping with malevolence. "I've missed you." Kristen, once a paragon of strength, was now powerless in the face of Freddy's relentless onslaught. The nightmare stalker relished in her fear, taunting her with the knowledge that he could never truly be defeated. It was a confrontation that filled the dream world with a chilling sense of déjà vu, a reminder that the horrors of Elm Street were far from over. Alice watched in horror as Freddy closed in on Kristen, his clawed glove gleaming in the dim light. She knew that she had to act, to harness the abilities of her friends, and to confront the evil that threatened to engulf them once more. The haunting had not just resumed, it had returned with a vengeance. Freddy Krueger, the nightmare incarnate, was back, and his reign of terror had only just begun. The battle for Elm Street had entered a terrifying new chapter, and the nightmare stalker was once again poised to claim his victims in the world of dreams. Chapter 4: The Dream Warrior's Demise. The haunting return of Freddy Krueger had ignited a nightmarish inferno that threatened to consume Elm Street once more. Alice, the quiet high school student with the extraordinary ability to absorb the traits of her friends, found herself at the heart of the maelstrom. In the wake of Kristen's harrowing confrontation with Freddy, the sense of foreboding deepened. The nightmares became a daily torment, and Alice felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier with each passing night. Her power was the key to defeating Freddy, but it was also a chilling reminder of the friends she had lost. Alice's efforts to harness her friends' abilities took on a newfound urgency. She immersed herself in her dreams, seeking to absorb their unique traits in a desperate bid to protect the remaining Elm Street survivors. Each night, she called upon Debbie's strength, Dan's resourcefulness, and the other traits she had acquired from her fallen friends. But despite her best efforts, Freddy's reign of terror continued to escalate. One by one, he claimed the lives of those who had once been part of the Dream Warriors, the band of survivors who had faced him before. The dream world had become a nightmarish battleground, with Freddy's sadistic creativity on full display. Debbie, who had once possessed the power to become as strong as steel, found herself ensnared by a sinister nightmare. She was trapped in a room filled with roaches, her phobia exposed by Freddy's malevolent cunning. As the insects closed in, the room's walls pulsating with grotesque life, she realized her power had been her own downfall. Dan, a skilled mechanic who had been the anchor for the Elm Street survivors, faced a relentless nightmare on the open road. Freddy seized control of a massive truck, driving it with a relentless determination to snuff out Dan's life. It was a battle of wits and wills, one that Dan could not win despite his best efforts. The Dream Warriors, who had once been united in their fight against Freddy, were falling one by one. Their deaths were not only a tragedy, but a sobering reminder of the nightmare stalker's insidious power. Their faces haunted Alice's dreams, their screams a chilling echo in the dark. Amid the chaos and fear, Alice began to see the connection between her friend's traits and the key to defeating Freddy. She realized that the very traits that had been their strengths could also be their vulnerabilities when manipulated by the Nightmare Stalker. Her power was a double-edged sword, one that she needed to wield with precision and care. As Alice delved deeper into her dreams, she became determined to understand the true nature of her ability and to use it to protect those who remained. The Dream Warrior's demise served as a stark reminder that they could not defeat Freddy by confronting him with their strengths alone. It was Alice's unique gift, her ability to absorb their traits, that would become the linchpin in the battle against the nightmare that sought to claim them all. The haunting had grown more intense, and the nightmare stalker's relentless pursuit of his victims showed no signs of waning. The battle for Elm Street had taken a grim turn, and Alice, with her quiet strength and burgeoning understanding of her power, was determined to turn the tide in their favor. Chapter 5: Alice's Transformation. With each passing night, the darkness on Elm Street grew deeper, and Alice Johnson's unique power continued to evolve. Her ability to absorb the traits and strengths of her fallen friends marked her as a pivotal figure in the battle against Freddy Krueger. As she ventured deeper into the realm of dreams, a profound transformation was taking place within her. Alice had always been the quiet observer, content to dwell in the shadows of her own existence. But her journey into the dream world, fueled by her connection to her friends and the haunting presence of Freddy, had begun to change her in profound ways. With each trait she absorbed, each power she harnessed, her own character underwent a metamorphosis. Debbie's strength, once her most terrifying nightmare, became a potent tool against Freddy. As she embraced this newfound power, her physicality changed. Alice's slender form grew stronger, her limbs more sinewy, and her resolve to confront the malevolent dream stalker deepened. Dan's resourcefulness, a quality that had once been his saving grace, became another weapon in Alice's growing arsenal. She found herself crafting elaborate dreamscapes, traps, and illusions to confound Freddy. It was no longer a one-sided battle, and Alice had learned to manipulate the dream world to her advantage. Mark's intellect, his encyclopedic knowledge of the dream world, became her guide and guardian. She delved into his wisdom, understanding the intricate rules of the dream realm, its shifting landscapes, and the power of belief. Armed with this knowledge, she could navigate the dream world with newfound confidence. Her transformation wasn't limited to the acquisition of strengths alone. Alice had also inherited her friends' fears, vulnerabilities, and experiences. She felt the weight of their traumas, their losses, and their regrets. These newfound weaknesses made her more empathetic and compassionate, forging a deeper connection to the souls she carried within her. In the waking world, her transformation became increasingly apparent. She was no longer content to linger on the fringes, isolated and silent. Alice had become more assertive, her voice growing stronger, her steps more purposeful. She was no longer willing to be a mere observer. She had become an active participant in the battle against Freddy Krueger. As her powers continued to grow, Alice's determination was unwavering. She knew that she could not face Freddy alone. It was not just her strength that had evolved. It was her understanding of the interconnectedness of her friends, their spirits living on within her. Their collective strength had become her armor, and their vulnerabilities her fuel. The haunting had resumed with a vengeance, but so had the transformation of Alice Johnson. She was no longer the timid high school student lost in her own nightmares. She had become a force to be reckoned with. Her evolution was the key to their survival, and as she looked ahead into the dream world, she knew that the battle against Freddy Krueger was far from over. With newfound strength and a growing understanding of her power, she was ready to confront the nightmare stalker and protect those she loved. Chapter 6: The Haunting Dreamscape. As Alice's transformation continued, The dream world itself grew more surreal and haunting. Freddy Krueger, relentless and sadistic, exploited the very fabric of the dreamscape, twisting it into a nightmarish labyrinth where reality and illusion merged into a terrifying tapestry of horror. The Elm Street survivors who remained, including Alice's love interest, Dan, were caught in the crosshairs of Freddy's malevolent creativity. The Nightmare Stalker reveled in their vulnerability, playing upon their deepest fears and insecurities with a sadistic glee. Alice's dreams became a nightmarish theater of horrors, where the boundaries of reality blurred. In one dream, she found herself trapped in a bizarre carnival, its neon lights flickering eerily. The grotesque figures in the funhouse mirrors bore the faces of her fallen friends, their laughter twisted into maniacal cackles. She knew that the dream world was no longer a playground for experimentation, but a battleground where her friends' lives hung in the balance. Dan, her love interest, had become a primary target of Freddy's torment. In his nightmares, Freddy manipulated the very fabric of reality, turning a simple trip to the beach into a gruesome ordeal. The sun-drenched sands turned into quicksand, and the serene waves transformed into serpentine tendrils that threatened to drag him under. The dream world was Freddy's domain, and he wielded it with a cruel precision that left no room for escape. The tension and fear in Elm Street grew palpable, with each death inflicted by Freddy adding to the oppressive atmosphere. He reveled in the torment he inflicted, savoring the fear etched onto his victims' faces. The Nightmare Stalker was an artist, using the canvas of dreams to craft his most horrifying creations. Alice's efforts to protect her friends became a race against time. She knew that her ability to absorb their traits could be their only hope, but the haunting dreamscape was unrelenting. The boundaries between the dream world and reality were disintegrating, and the Nightmare Stalker's grip was tightening with each passing night. Freddy's resurgence had brought a sense of foreboding to Elm Street, a place where the line between waking and dreaming had grown thin. The haunting dreamscape was a sinister reflection of the innermost fears and desires of those who dared to sleep, and Freddy Krueger reveled in the chaos he sowed. With each night that passed, the Elm Street survivors found themselves drawn deeper into the dream world, each dream becoming a battle for their lives. The haunting had resumed with a vengeance, and the audience, like the characters, was kept on edge, wondering who would be the next victim in Freddy's nightmarish game. Chapter 7: The Dark Past Unveiled. As Elm Street descended further into the abyss of Freddy Krueger's nightmarish reign, Alice Johnson's determination to protect her friends grew unyielding. The haunting dreamscape, marked by surreal horrors and mounting tension, had claimed the lives of those who had once faced Freddy before. The Elm Street survivors, now a dwindling few, sought answers amid the growing chaos. Alice delved into research, determined to unearth the disturbing secrets of Freddy's origins. She knew that understanding his past might hold the key to defeating him in the dream world. Alice's research led her to the Elm Street house, the epicenter of their torment. It was a place steeped in darkness, its very foundations tainted by the malevolent force that was Freddy Krueger. She uncovered hidden newspaper articles, police reports, and eyewitness accounts from decades ago. They told a harrowing tale of a vengeful spirit, a man who had been burned to death by the enraged parents of Elm Street. The sinister truth of Freddy's past began to take shape. Freddy Krueger had once been a real man, a man who had terrorized the Elm Street community with a string of heinous crimes. His reign of terror had come to a violent end when the parents of the neighborhood took justice into their own hands. They had cornered him in the abandoned boiler room, the very place where he had once lured children to commit his atrocities, and set it ablaze. The fire had consumed Freddy, leaving him burned and scarred, a grotesque reflection of the monster he had become. But death had not been the end for him. Instead, his vengeful spirit had found a way to return, to haunt the dreams of Elm Street's children and exact his revenge on the parents who had condemned him. Alice's discoveries were chilling. She realized that the source of Freddy's power was not only his malevolence, but also the unresolved pain and anger of his past. The Nightmare Stalker drew strength from the collective guilt and fear of Elm Street's residents, using their darkest secrets against them in the dream world. With this newfound knowledge, Alice understood that confronting Freddy required more than just her friend's traits and her own determination. She needed to delve into the heart of Freddy's darkness, to confront the sins of the past, and to uncover the truth that had been buried for years. The research became a race against time, as the body count continued to rise. Alice knew that understanding Freddy's past was a risk, that facing his origins might plunge her even deeper into the nightmare. But it was a risk she was willing to take. The haunting of Elm Street had taken a toll on the survivors, and they needed to confront the darkness at its core if they were to have any hope of survival. As Alice pieced together the fragments of the past, she knew that the battle against Freddy Krueger had taken a chilling turn. The malevolent force that haunted their dreams was not just a faceless monster. It was a manifestation of a dark and twisted history that demanded resolution. The secrets of Elm Street were beginning to unravel, and the Nightmare Stalker's origins held the key to their ultimate confrontation. Chapter 8: Alice's Confrontation with Freddy. The knowledge of Freddy Krueger's dark origins had become both a weapon and a burden for Alice. Armed with the understanding that the Nightmare Stalker drew power from the sins of the past, she embarked on a quest to confront him in the dream world. With the traits of her fallen friends at her disposal, she was determined to unravel the twisted web of Elm Street's history and put an end to Freddy's reign of terror. In the heart of the dream world, the surreal and nightmarish landscape seemed to await her arrival. It was a realm where reality shifted like quicksand, and the rules of the waking world held no sway. The haunted Elm Street house loomed in the distance, its dark silhouette a symbol of their torment. Alice's transformation was apparent as she stood on the threshold of this nightmarish battleground. She had absorbed the strength of her friend, Debbie, and her own body had changed. Her limbs were sinewy and powerful, and her determination was unwavering. She bore the intellect of Mark, her knowledge of the dream world guiding her steps. As Alice ventured deeper into the dream world, she could sense the presence of Freddy. He was a malevolent force that had haunted Elm Street for years, and now he awaited her with a predatory hunger. His burned visage, clad in tattered attire, emerged from the darkness, his gloved hand adorned with razor-sharp blades. "Welcome to my domain, Alice," Freddy hissed, his voice laced with mockery. "I've been waiting for you." Alice had come prepared. She was not alone in this battle. In the dream world, the spirits of her friends, the traits she had absorbed, were with her. Debbie's strength coursed through her, her resolve unbreakable. Dan's resourcefulness allowed her to craft the dream world to her advantage, shaping the battleground to her liking. Mark's knowledge provided her with the tools to navigate this treacherous landscape. The confrontation with Freddy was a thrilling and terrifying battle of wills. He wielded the power of their shared nightmares, manipulating the dreamscape with sadistic creativity. He conjured grotesque illusions, manifested the darkest fears, and taunted Alice with the deepest insecurities of her past. But Alice was not the same quiet high school student she had once been. She had become a dream master, a force to be reckoned with. Her knowledge of Freddy's origins and the traits of her friends gave her an advantage. She wielded their strengths against him, turning the tables on the Nightmare Stalker. Debbie's strength allowed her to resist Freddy's attempts to subdue her. She fought back, pushing against his nightmarish visions and each strike she delivered was a blow against the malevolent force that had tormented Elm Street for so long. Dan's resourcefulness turned the dream world into a maze, where Freddy's tactics were confounded at every turn. Mark's knowledge of the dream realm allowed her to counter Freddy's manipulations with insight and cunning. The climactic showdown was a battle of nightmares, a thrilling dance of darkness and light. Alice and Freddy clashed in a realm where reality and illusion melded into a terrifying tapestry. The haunting dreamscape had become a battleground, and the outcome hung in the balance. Freddy, the nightmare stalker, was relentless in his pursuit of Alice, his sinister tactics on full display. He tried to manipulate her deepest fears, using her vulnerabilities against her. But Alice had evolved, and her understanding of Freddy's origins had given her an upper hand. With each passing moment, the dream world echoed with the clash of wills, the confrontation between the Dream Master and the malevolent force that had haunted Elm Street. The audience, like Alice, was kept on the edge of their seats, wondering if this would be the moment when Freddy Krueger, the Nightmare Stalker, was finally defeated. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the haunting had reached its climax. The Nightmare Stalker was no longer the uncontested master of the dream world. With her friends' traits as her allies, Alice was determined to put an end to the reign of terror that had plagued Elm Street for far too long. Chapter 9: The Final Showdown. The dream world had become a battleground of nightmares, where Alice Johnson and Freddy Krueger clashed with an intensity that was palpable. The final showdown between the Dream Master and the Nightmare Stalker was a harrowing spectacle, a culmination of years of torment and terror. Freddy, with his burned visage and gleaming clawed glove, had become more relentless and menacing than ever. His malevolence knew no bounds, and he had honed his skills over the years, becoming a master of the dream world. As the battle reached its peak, he unleashed his full arsenal of nightmarish tactics. The haunting dreamscape shifted and twisted under Freddy's control. He conjured phantasmagoric illusions, each one more grotesque and horrifying than the last. The dream world itself seemed to rebel against Alice, with reality melting into surreal nightmares. The environment became a reflection of the darkness that lay within Elm Street's collective psyche. As Alice's determination and inner strength were put to the test, the fate of her friends hung in the balance. The spirits of her fallen companions, the traits she had absorbed, were with her in this final battle. Their strength, their resourcefulness, and their knowledge provided her with an advantage, but Freddy's relentless pursuit threatened to overwhelm her. The audience was drawn into the heart of this nightmarish conflict, where the line between reality and illusion had grown thin. Alice's transformation, from a quiet high school student to a formidable dream master, was on full display. She fought back with a courage and determination that had been forged in the crucible of her own nightmares. Freddy, ever the sadistic manipulator, sought to exploit Alice's vulnerabilities. He delved into her deepest fears and regrets, trying to break her spirit. But Alice's connection to her friends, her understanding of Freddy's origins, and her newfound strength allowed her to resist his torment. The final showdown was a thrilling and terrifying spectacle, a battle of wills in a realm where the rules of the waking world held no sway. The haunting had reached its climax, and the audience watched with bated breath as Alice confronted the Nightmare Stalker. The outcome was uncertain, and the fate of Elm Street's survivors hung in the balance. The tension in the dream world was palpable, the clash of two formidable adversaries echoing through the surreal landscape. It was a battle that had been years in the making, a battle between the embodiment of evil and the quiet strength of a young woman who had been pushed to her limits. As the final showdown reached its peak, the haunting of Elm Street seemed to hold its breath. The audience, like Alice, was poised on the precipice of resolution, wondering if this would be the moment when Freddy Krueger, the nightmare stalker, was finally defeated. Chapter 10: The Dream Master's Triumph. The final battle in the dream world had reached its climax, and the fate of Elm Street's survivors hung in the balance. The haunting dreamscape was a surreal battlefield, where the line between reality and illusion had grown thin. Alice Johnson, the quiet high school student turned dream master, confronted Freddy Krueger, the nightmare stalker who had terrorized Elm Street for years. As Alice's determination was put to the ultimate test, she found herself delving deep into her own fears and insecurities. The malevolent force of Freddy exploited her vulnerabilities, seeking to break her spirit and plunge her into the abyss of eternal nightmares. The climax of the battle was a heart-pounding spectacle, a battle of wills that seemed to transcend the boundaries of the dream world. Alice had absorbed the traits of her fallen friends, and they were with her, lending their strength, their resourcefulness, and their knowledge to the fight. But it was not just the traits of her friends that powered her. It was her own inner strength, the courage she had found in the face of relentless torment. The haunting had transformed her, and the nightmare stalker's relentless pursuit had forged her into a formidable opponent. Freddy's tactics grew more desperate and sadistic as the battle raged on. He conjured nightmarish illusions, twisted the dream world into grotesque shapes, and delved deeper into Alice's mind to uncover her deepest fears. But Alice had come to understand the darkness that lay within herself, the pain and regret that had haunted her. In a moment of revelation, she faced her fears head on. She confronted her own past and found the strength to overcome it. It was a moment of empowerment, a realization that she was no longer the helpless victim of her own nightmares. With newfound determination, Alice turned the tables on Freddy. She used the traits of her friends against him, wielding their strengths and resourcefulness as weapons. The dream world became a battlefield where reality and illusion merged, and Alice's courage and cunning outmatched the malevolent force that had tormented Elm Street for so long. In the heart-pounding climax, Alice overcame Freddy's torment, her transformation from a quiet high school student to a formidable dream master reaching its peak. She faced her fears, conquered her past, and ultimately triumphed over the nightmare stalker. Freddy, his power waning and his sinister visage marred by defeat, was vanquished. The haunting dreamscape crumbled, and the surreal landscape dissolved, leaving Elm Street survivors in the safety of their own dreams. The movie ended with a sense of closure, as Alice stood victorious in the dream world. But the iconic horror series hinted at a future where Freddy Krueger might return. The haunting of Elm Street might have reached its resolution, but the malevolent force that had once haunted their nightmares was not gone forever. The audience was left with a chilling sense that Freddy Krueger, the nightmare stalker, might find a way to return, keeping the horror series alive and haunting the dreams of future generations. The Dream Master's triumph was a moment of victory, but the legacy of Elm Street's nightmares was far from over. Hello, fellow fiction fans. I'm thrilled you're enjoying Muted Gamer Fiction. Your support means the world to me. If you're loving our stories, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement fuels our storytelling. I'd love to hear from you. Share fanfic ideas, or just say hi in the comments. Let's build this community together. Thanks for being part of Muted Gamer Fiction. Keep listening, and your support keeps the stories coming. Can't wait to see your ideas. Happy listening, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next chapter.